breaking tonight, a fresh release of the Epstein files have just dropped. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, the disgraced former businessman, paedophile, killed himself. He had many acquaintances, many people he worked with, many people who travelled on his plane and visited his island. Finally, tonight, the Trump administration has released the files. The Department of Justice have set 300,000 PDF files, pictures, documents out into the world for the world to see. The only caveat is that 90% of it, and that's no exaggeration, is redacted. However, there are some very interesting pictures there, including the likes of Bill Clinton, who's pictured many times, with a young woman there, if you're watching on television. The DOJ, by the way, just as a bit of context, they've said that anybody who is redacted or their identity is protected in this cache of files is potentially a victim. So just bear that in mind. And of course, it is important to say that just because people are pictured, it doesn't mean they are guilty of anything. Guilty by association isn't a thing, of course. And if there is any accusations flying around, then everybody denies them. So let's just be straight from the off. So Bill Clinton, there he is with a young lady. This is a brand new picture that the world hasn't seen before. We've got another picture as well of Bill Clinton. He does feature quite heavily, actually, Bill Clinton. And we know he travelled on Epstein's plane dozens of times. Although, again, he denies any wrongdoing. Bill Clinton in a hot tub with a young lady whose face has been redacted. You've got the likes of Michael Jackson in there as well. Mick Jagger. We'll try and get some more of those pictures for you very shortly. And the once was Prince Andrew, now known, of course, as Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. He is there as well. There's a picture of him, which we'll endeavour to get for you, lying on the laps of a row of young women, I guess, whose faces have been redacted. I'm joined in London by my panel tonight, Jennifer Ewan from Republicans Overseas, and Christo Fufas. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for sticking around.
I'm still here.
And great to see you in the flesh again after speaking to you for so long down the line.
I'm not usually allowed to actually, for legal reasons, touch you, so I appreciate that you actually physically touch me.
Yeah, we'll keep it at that. That was your Christmas present.
There's
Jennifer,
he too.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Ben.
What have we learned from this new cache, this new trove of pictures?
Not a lot, actually. I mean, it's all kind of very tabloid. And I guess the good news is for the victims, this goes back to, 2006? I think the first crime was reported back in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
And it was ignored. It was ignored by, local authorities and then federal authorities until, of course, somebody thought they could attach it to Donald Trump. And then the media got all excited about it, and we've seen what's happened since then. So I think people probably thought there would be a lot more information, perhaps, on intelligence agencies, on financial crimes, that sort of thing. So also we were told by Thomas Massie, who is one of the co-sponsors of the Epstein Files Transparency Bill, which is what's come out today, which is, separate than what the Oversight Committee has been releasing, that there are allegedly 20 men's names that have been allegedly, accused of sex crimes, and that he thinks if we don't start to see some of those names come out in the files, then it's very redacted. And that's more than, as you commented on, that just victims, right?
Yeah, so why are they redacted?
Well, I mean, the victim part makes sense. Of course,
yeah.
If you're a young girl or a young woman, even if it's 20 years later, you certainly do not want, I don't know who this young woman is, but there's no need for us to see her face. We kind of get the picture of what's going on. That sort of redaction, I don't think anybody has a problem with. However, if what's being redacted is actual content and facts about people who have committed crimes, whether it's sex trafficking, sex abuse, financial crimes, intelligence sort of situation, that's a problem. And people are not going to be satisfied with these 300,000 documents that have just been released.
Yeah, I mean, literally 90% is redacted. So, Christo, what politically for President Trump, of course, he ran on elections saying, we're going to release the Epstein files, and MAGA went mad and said, yes, can't wait to see the Epstein files. Then this year, the 12 months now, sorry, we're in December, he's been very reluctant to release them. And finally, after waves of pressure, he said, OK, to hell with it, release the files. We don't know why he was so reluctant. I've got my suspicions. Maybe he wanted to protect people who were donors or whatever who were in there and weren't necessarily guilty of anything. But they're out now. So is the political campaign against Trump on the Epstein files now over?
Yeah, I think that, the White House spokesperson, Abigail Jackson, said not long ago that the Trump administration is the most transparent in history. And I think that you're right to point out that you've got... I mean, Epstein was a figure that had lots and lots of money, right? And this glamorous life and all of this stuff. And that means that political figures and celebrities would gravitate towards him. That is just absolutely inevitable, that there are going to be people that are very, very well known and prominent pictured with this man. And so that's going to mean that guilt by association rather than actual guilt will be something that will be a big concern for people. Now, I've been looking through some of these pictures, and, you know, the Bill Clinton one is horrible, where he's sort of lying back in that. Really, it's horrible. But again, that doesn't mean he's guilty of anything.
Yeah.
He's just friends. But I also find really interesting some of these... Epstein's record keeping and the amount of photos of things that I'm looking at some of them now, like all of the VHS tapes that he kept of surveillance cameras around his house. Also, all of the CDs of all of these photos as well. He took so many photos and had many documents and things that he had kept, which is sort of weird, but also, you know, why would he have done that?
Well, that's what we want to see and know about, isn't it? Not these pictures of Bill Clinton with his hairy chest in a hot tub. We want to know why there were so many VHS tapes, what were on those CDs. We want to know the proper story. Did Epstein kill himself? You know, the cameras were out, the guards were off that night.
I was suspicious.
Well, yeah.
So suspicious.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GBNews discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GBnews to start protecting yourself digitally today.
You know, to your point, Chris, I mean, the record keeping was impeccable, and there's one reason for that, is that he was running a big blackmail operation. I mean, that's what was going on, you know, and that's why he had so many high-profile people that he met up with, because whether it was compromat or whatever, whether he wanted politicians to vote in a certain way, whether he wanted certain things from, you know, the King of Morocco, who he, you know,
On the instruction of who, Jennifer?
Well, I mean, you know, you can look into this yourself, but it's a very deep belief that he was a gun for hire for a multitude of different intelligence agencies for a variety of different countries, including my home country of the United States, including Britain, including Israel, including a multitude of countries. This was an intelligence operation, hence the record keeping.
That's the stuff. I find that way more interesting, by the way.
Well, that's the story.
But I mean, what I mean is the detail in this. So, like, you know, some of the notes written on the tapes, like, you know, cell phone message, work, voicemail, such and such messages with some of the names redacted, follow-up call to such and such. So every single thing, every single call he ever made, he had a little tape of. And that kind of detail I find way more fascinating than pictures of celebrities.
But it's definitely, I mean, he was a sex offender, sex trafficker, weird guy, a very strange individual indeed. But as we know the DOJ knows the full story. They've redacted these files, so just get them out there. Protect the victims, yes, of course you have to. But I don't believe, looking at what I have of these files so far, the 300,000 documents, that they are all to do with protecting victims.
No, definitely not. And we heard the U.S. Attorney Todd Blanche on earlier this afternoon saying that over the next few weeks, we are probably going to see more and more coming out. It's taking them longer to do these reductions for the victims. But I think that this was dumped hoping people would say, oh, okay, this is a tabloid story. It's very depraved, obviously. It's terrible for the victims. But no, there's definitely more to this.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked in Wall Street during the 2000s, and you kind of knew the big names of the hedge fund managers and the big bankers. Nobody had ever talked about Jeffrey Epstein. He was not known as a big financier. And by the way, he also worked miraculously without any sort of qualifications at one of the biggest high-end private schools in Manhattan. So, you know, and then he got to Bear Stearns, and then all of a sudden he's this huge money manager. It just does not add up.
He was suddenly parachuted, wasn't he?
Exactly.
From working at the school, then went into finance and was suddenly this high flying.
Exactly.
Last question to you with this, Christo, before we move on. Is President Trump vindicated by this release of files and what we know so far? Because as a little timeline, somebody posted on X earlier, 2004, Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. 2005, Trump reported Epstein's behaviour to the authorities. 2009, Trump cooperated with Epstein victim's lawyer. 2017, Trump signed the executive order targeting human trafficking. 2019, Epstein arrested during Trump's presidency. 2019, the FBI raid on Epstein's island, the same year as the presidency. And 2025, Trump releases the Epstein files. So is Trump vindicated?
I think I think that it's fair to say that he probably is, because he seems to be making progress in sending this stuff out. I mean, the conspiracy theorist will wonder is obviously, is Trump being redacted? What does Ghislaine Maxwell know? There's so much that the conspiracy theorists will say. But I think the wider point is that even if there are pictures of Trump with more pictures of Trump with Epstein, more pictures of him. Even if you had a picture of Trump in the hot tub like you've got with Bill Clinton, I don't think that Trump followers will care.
Plus, it would have come out. The Democrats had these files for 4 years. They indicted the guy over 90 times. You know, they would have come out.
They did the last,
so I don't think anyone thinks he's implicated in that way.
The last release that they did was such a damp squib. It really was. There was just like nothing to it. There was so
it's a great point.
He is.
It's a great point, Jennifer. They tried to kill this guy, President Trump. They tried to impeached him. They indicted him. They tried to jail him for life. Are you telling me that if Trump was up to no good on Epstein Island, they wouldn't have had out by now to stop him?
Yeah.
I think the worst is a couple of pictures of him with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know what, where Trump is probably open for criticism is that he underestimated how much his base, how much America First said, we sent you to Washington to clean up this garbage and be transparent. And you need to open this up. And he did. He signed the law 30 days ago, today. So.
Right, for the latest developments, I'm joined by Simon Hankinson, the Senior Research Fellow in the Border, Security and Immigration Centre at the Heritage Foundation, who joins me live from Washington, D.C. Simon, good evening. Thanks for your company. What do you make of this latest trove of pictures, including, I think, the best picture, Simon, is this one of Bill Clinton in the bathtub, or the hot tub, rather. What's your take?
Well, look, I mean, there's going to be a whole weekend of people rifling through 500 links, and there's redactions left and right. But what are people really looking for? They're trying to find Lord Lucan shacked up with Amelia Earhart on the island, you know, with the Lindbergh baby. I don't know what is at the core of this that both sides are hoping to find. It's a double-edged sword. There's prominent Democrats, prominent Republicans, prominent business people. The core of the story is, oddly, nerds like to go for free to an island where there's, you know, lots of young women. The scandal and the crime is, were those women coerced? Were they underage? And that's the evidence that I think people are going to be looking for. There was one thing I saw, a 1996 complaint by a photographer who said that Epstein had taken negatives and photos that she had taken of her own sisters who were 12 and 16 swimming in the pool, and he tried to sell them to somebody else, and that when she complained about it, he threatened to burn her house down. That's the kind of bombshell that we might find in these revelations from the court cases. The pictures of smiling people with Jeffrey Epstein, like Michael Jackson, Walter Cronkite, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Prince Andrew, you know, that's all out.
There was a new picture just there on your screen. I'm not sure if you could see it. It was the once Prince Andrew laying down on the laps of there we go, various women. Simon, am I right in saying that the DOJ have said if there's anybody whose identity is hidden, their faces are redacted by these black blocs, that potentially they are victims?
Not necessarily. I mean, they are supposed to be able to redact if it's national security information or there's a national security risk, if there are victims, if there's any evidence of child sex abuse. And of course, we have to remember that, just being guilty by association is not in anyone's interest either. There have been a lot of people who've been accused of doing things that they obviously have not done, or at least there's no evidence that they've done. So you shouldn't be able to put pictures of every Tom, Dick, and Harry up for the internet and the world to see unless they've actually been accused of doing something.
I'm just laughing, Bill, because somebody on gbnews.com/your say is getting funny with some puns. Bill has said, got no sympathy for the devil, I think referencing Mick Jagger. And Bill again has said, Mick went for some brown sugar. That's why he was there. Simon, just finally, what does this mean politically for President Trump? Is it over with now? Has he shaken off the Epstein kind of monkey on his back?
Look, I think with each revelation and tranche of documents that shows that Trump basically did what he said he did, which is they were friends till, sometime around the early 2000s when Epstein, annoyed him and they broke the friendship. I haven't seen any new evidence, but obviously there's a lot there to trawl through that puts Trump in a worse light than he was before. But no, it's not behind him because, as long as there's documents that haven't been released and that haven't been combed through and that are even slightly redacted, the conspiracy theory wheels will turn. So I think the more that can be gotten out, the more people can look through it and get to the bottom of whatever it is, which is probably not much at this point, the better it is for all concerned.
Simon, great to see you. Thanks for your company, and we'll catch up soon when I return to DC in the new year. Take care. Thank you.